Starting now. Okay, this is CSC200, Game Programming 1, and we have quite a few things that we're going to cover today. Number one is getting things turned in so that they can be graded, okay? So I want to show you something. I'm going to share another screen here so you can see what I'm talking about on this. When you're turning things into me, one of the things that was requested at the beginning of the semester was that you download a particular version of Unity. Let's see, is that still, yeah, that's still broadcasting. Okay, let's see, let me get somebody else back in. Participants, here we go. Okay, all right. So what I have on the screen is just the Unity Hub, if y'all have downloaded that and used it. But this is pretty much how I can, or you can too, add projects like you created one somewhere, downloaded one, you want to add it in to where Unity can see. Then this, you want to go with the Hub on this. Now, I've downloaded, the top two I've got here are games that were submitted. And so I'm going to take a look at these. Okay, one of them was submitted, and if you notice, it uses the version that I had asked for, which means I can pull that directly in, open it up, and grade it. Okay, now then here's another one that was turned in, and it's using Unity version 2018.1.6F1. And if you might have noticed, there are a lot of versions of Unity, and I just literally do not have disk space enough to install all the versions. So what's going to happen then if you have a Unity version 2018? Well, if I try to open it, I get an error message along the bottom that says, hey, you don't have that installed on this machine. And again, I don't have enough room to install all of them. Now, I have installed the earliest one I could find and the latest one I can find. So I do have over here both the 2020 latest one and the 2017, which is one of the earliest ones you can still get. Well, if I try to open this with 2020, let's see what it's going to do to me. Now, see, that's going to have me create a new one. That doesn't cut it right there. If I just come over here and click on this, it says, sorry, you can't do that. So I can select a version right here. And if I select the most recent version, it's going to be iffy whether or not this thing will even open. And this is what it asks. Do you want to upgrade to the newer version of Unity? And I'll tell it, yes, I do. And you'll see what all it has to go through for this to work. Okay, that screen just disappeared. Okay, because a new one is coming up. Give it just a second here. Let me see if I can share this one. Unity Package Manager. Is that going to share? Yeah, okay. So this is what's going on. It's trying to go through and take all of the commands from the 2018 version of Unity and upgrade them to the 2020 version of Unity. And it just depends upon what was used and what you clicked on, how you rearrange the windows, everything like that comes into effect on this. And this is going to, we'll see. Some of them will open and some of them won't, and I haven't tried this one yet, so we'll find out. You can see the second count going on this thing. And this is going to go on for a while. And one of two things is going to happen. It's going to reach a point where it can't make the change from the old version to the new version, and it's going to stop and tell me, not going to happen. Or we get lucky and it does go ahead and convert over to the newer version. But either way, this is quite a pause for me if I'm trying to go through and grade project after project after project. So what are we going to do then? Well, if you did use the same version of Unity I did, then you're fine, no problem. Just zip up the packages like the video showed you to do and upload them, and those come in just fine, not a problem. Well, what about for those that don't have that version? Let's see, I've got another window that just popped up. it's doing an update check on this. Y'all are still seeing the importing, but there's some windows playing on my screen. So this is not going to be acceptable. However, what you can do is you can launch Zoom, not go to any meeting, launch your own meeting and record it. And so what that means you can do is that you can get Unity going. You can pull up Zoom. You can start it, share the Unity screen, start recording, and make a recording that goes through and shows me everything that I'm supposed to be grading. Okay, so that's going to be the two options that you have. If you upload anything other than the 2017 dot whatever, I'm not going to be able to grade it. So you either download the same version I have, which I've told you don't have to do that, and you don't, or you make a video that shows me everything I'm supposed to see, and you turn in that video. Okay, just a second. Okay, because that closed. Let me tell it okay. Okay, now here's, this thing did not pull in. Let me share this particular screen and I'll show you what I get. Okay, that's the message. Failed to load, and it says use default layout, revert to factory settings, quit. I've tried all of those. I haven't had success with any of them working. So if you give me anything other than the 2017.3.01F, I believe, then I can't open it. It's just that simple. Okay. So what we're going to do instead then is you would make a recording showing me all the stuff that you're supposed to be showing me, and I can then grade that based on the recording. Okay, so what all should you turn in and what all should you show in the recording? Okay, let me share another screen and we'll look at that. All right, we've got that one up. As you go through and you look at the bottom of a week, I've clicked and gone on to this particular assignment, and I am in here as a student, so I am seeing the same things that you will see. Okay, we've got making things move, and it's telling you what all it needs, and then here is the grading criteria. So you need to look down through that, and if you have to, make a copy of it, whatever you want to do. But that's what I need to see to be able to successfully grade your project. All right, so this one, the very first one we did, Space Invaders 01, was just simply, you know, get a project set up and started and get ready to go. So there's not much on that to grade. On the second one, this was what you were supposed to have. Okay, you're supposed to have the good guys being able to go back and forth with the arrow keys. The bad guys are supposed to come over to the side, drop down, come over to the side, drop down. And we went through a bunch of code and stuff on that last week. Okay, now then this week is shooting bullets, and I'm going to click on it. All right, and this goes through and tells you what you're supposed to do. We will cover all of this today. Okay, we're going to go through and look at how to do all that today. The grading, here you go again. Okay, so if you are having to make a video to show me, then these are what I would need to see to be able to grade your project. And that's fine. Zoom, you'll just find where it saves its little videos. And when it does, please alter the name of it, because it's just a funky name with the date and time like that on. But please be sure to include your name in that. Okay, that really helps me when I'm trying to figure out who it is I'm grading. So go to Zoom. After you make your recording, change the name of it. You can upload the recording, and I just tested that before class started. I'm in here as a student, and I picked one of my Zoom recordings and uploaded. The thing you have to be careful of, the recording cannot be larger than 1 gig. Well, I did a 30-minute video from last night, and it uploaded with less than 200 meg. So it's going to have to be one heck of a video to cross that 1 gig board. So this is what you'll need to turn in. I have a place for it to be turned in, and this is for week 4, which is shooting bullets, which is Space Invaders 3. Okay, so there you would add your file. You upload either your zipped project, if it's the same version mine is, or your video showing me that your project works as it is supposed to. And you submit that. Now then, what about the past stuff that's been submitted? I'm going to grade all 3 off of this last one that you submit right here. Okay. If let me try that again. Be sure to upload the most that you've got so far. And if you have, because all of these build on the prior week. So if you submit week or Space Invaders 3 to me, I can look at it to see if you did the stuff for Space Invaders 2 and Space Invaders 1. So it won't be that hard to do. I just went through and tried to be able to pull in and upgrade it to something better, but no, it just doesn't work. So the original, if it matches my version, a Zoom recording, a video from Zoom, and that's an MP4 that it makes by default, and that's fine. That works great. Okay, so to get caught up on grading and to know where you are, you have your quiz grades you can look at, and then turn this in. It's not due till this time next week, so I'm not going to start grading it until after class next week. Okay, so don't expect the grade to come out over the weekend because it's not due. Okay, so after the due date, then I'll go through and grade them all and make sure everybody knows how they're doing. Okay, if you've been keeping up with me, and then you've got no problem. If you haven't been keeping up with me, you got 1 week to get caught up, or it's going to start affecting your grades adversely. All right, any questions over what I need you to turn in and how you're going to be graded?
Yes.
Yeah, Alex?
So next week you're gonna start the grading.
Yes.
Does that mean that we got an extra week from the homework today? Because I only got my player moving. I don't have my enemy moving yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'll spot you that. Okay. So
Okay.
Just make sure by this time next week, you have it completed through version 3, which includes shooting bullets.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Questions anywhere else? And I still have a screen shared, so I'm not seeing everybody's picture. You're going to have to unmute and talk to me if you got a question. Double check. I don't believe I've got anybody sitting in the, no, everybody's in from the green room. Okay. If everybody's, let's try that again. Have you got a voice filter on?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying.
Okay. Oh, I love it. All right. I'm going to start in on the material for today then. Let's see. Make sure. Okay. All right. I'm going to start and open up a brand new Unity project, and we'll start filling in from there. Okay. By the way, our topics today, there's 3 of them: prefabs, a game manager, and what a singleton is. Okay, so we're going to cover those 3 in that order today. Okay, so Unity, come here and let me start a new. As soon as that comes up, we'll see how long the sharing lasts on this one. New share, and I don't see Unity yet. I've got it. I got to let it go a little bit further than that. Well, let me just stop the share until it does, so you're not just staring at the same screen. Okay, so I want to do a new one, and let's see. Yeah, this is the older version of Unity, and I'm just going to call this week 4 Space Invaders 3. I think that's where we're at, 03. Okay, and it is 2D, and I'm creating the project. Okay, and that's, of course, got to do its thing here for a minute, and then it will come up. What was the filter that somebody was using just then? Audrey, was that you doing the filter?
No.
It wasn't you?
No.
I think it was Aiden.
Yeah, it seems like Aiden has a question. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not being able.
And Aiden, I'm sorry for throwing you under the bus for that funny audio.
Oh, I've had
sorry,
Aiden in
too.
classes before. We're okay, man. He can pull that kind of stuff all he wants to. It's no big deal. Okay. Let's see. My screen came up and I lost my Zoom thing. Okay. I love it when he changes his picture to a picture of me. He does that and that throws me off so bad. Okay. So here we go. This will be Unity coming up. Yeah. All right. So first thing we're going to do is take a look at prefabs. Prefabs, there's a reason for them, and let me show you what that is on this. So in my assets, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to create a sprite that's a circle, okay? And that is now in my assets, but remember, just because it's in the assets does not put it into the scene, okay? You have to drag it up there and put it in the scene. All right, so if I drag this up and drop it, and I can put 2 or 3 of these little guys up here, that's fine. And hard to read up here, but up in the hierarchy, this is called circle, then circle 1 in parentheses, circle 2 in parentheses, and it will just continue that pattern on for as many as I put out there. Okay, so let's see, on the circle itself, what happens if I come over and change its color? Let's see. Well, I really can't come over and change its color. Well, crap. Okay. Well, let me come up here to one of these guys then. And I'm going to change it from being white to red. And this now comes in handy if you understand the RGB hex codes. Red is, since it's RGB, it's all red, no green, no blue. And that would be FF0000. And I changed that one, but I want them all to be red. Well, that didn't work. Or perhaps I want to change all of them to a different size. Well, it doesn't do any good to change any one of these. It doesn't change them all. And what if I have 15 or 20 of these things? Such as in some of the games that you see the enemy coming at you and there's hordes of the enemy coming at you. Well, it won't cut it to have to go through and alter each one at a time. So we can take care of this problem by using a prefab. And it's hard to tell a prefab is a prefab. Now I'm going to come up here in hierarchy and just start deleting these out, maybe. Hopefully, I don't want to get rid of everything else, just the circles. Okay, so now then we've got that. All right, to make a prefab. Now, a prefab is just as prefabricated, and you're just going to change them and change them and change them. But if you change the original prefab, you change all of the ones that are on the screen. So how do you make a prefab? You just pull something onto the screen, and it shows up here. Okay, and it shows up as a circle because that's what the original is called. Okay, well, I can now change this, and I'm going to change this to Ball Prefab as the name. So I'm changing its name to Ball Prefab. Okay, and it still had the word circle in there. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so now it's just Ball Prefab. All I have to do is drag that back down from the hierarchy back into assets, and all of a sudden I have a Ball Prefab down here. Now, once it's here, I just go back up and get rid of it out of the hierarchy, okay? But that is now a prefabricated object. And so I'm going to take it and place it up here on the screen 2 or 3 times. Okay, there we go. And now then, if I click on the prefab, notice it is the same as one of these little guys. I can get to the colors. So I'm on the prefab. I didn't click one of these guys. I clicked the prefab. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to change my colors to red, which is FF0000. And if you notice when I hit enter, it does add an extra FF, and that's just the brightness that goes along with it. But notice that once I changed the prefab, it changed every occurrence of the prefab that I put up there on the screen. So that's why we use prefabs. And again, this is good if you want all of the objects to remain looking the same. You need to make a change to one. You need to make a change to all 1,000 of them. Well, you come back to the prefab, make your change once there, and it automatically goes to all of the objects you created. But like I say, it's hard to tell it's a prefab. Okay, and I'll go through that process again. Let me get rid of these. I'll do that one more time for you. Delete key would be good if I could find it. There we go. Okay, and then this one, and then this one, and I'll go get rid of the prefab itself. Okay, gives me a warning on that one. All right, so again, all I did was pull in something I'm going to make the prefab out of. Okay, place it up into the scene. Now, while it's up here, make whatever changes you want to on it. I can go ahead and change its color, and I'll go ahead and start it at red. And it's FF 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's see. So now that sucker is red. I'm going to change its name to something more descriptive, and it is a ball prefab because I may have some prefabs and I may have some that are just circles I drug up there. So it helps if there's a name that tells you what's what. Okay, so I've got that done. Now then, I can bring that to make the prefab. You drag from the hierarchy back into the assets, and that now becomes a prefab. That's what makes it a prefab. You brought it up to the scene, you made whatever modifications you want to it, and drug it from the hierarchy back into the assets, and that makes it a prefab. It's now treated differently. So again, I can come up here and get rid of that one because it will remain down here, and I can drag all of my little spots wherever. Okay, and then if I want to change the color, again, well, let's see. Let me double check what I'm telling you. I'm going to come to, I've only got one of the prefabs on the screen selected, and I'm going to change its color to green, and that's RGB, so 00FF00. And notice if I come up onto the scene, that changes one at a time only. So you can modify them after they're up there. But if I want them all to be blue, then I'm going to come back and select the prefab. And notice the prefab is still nice and red. And oh, somebody got bumped out and is coming back in. Give me just a second. Okay, I'm going to change the prefab to be blue. Okay, so click that and RGB. So this time it's going to be 0000FF. And since I changed that one on its own, it is no longer being changed by the prefab. Okay, so things to be careful of. If you change any of the prefabs, then it becomes all on its own, and you'll have to go to it and make changes to it specifically. Okay, that is prefabs. All right, what kind of questions come to mind when we're talking about prefabs?
Okay, so this is a thing I commonly do in other engines, right? When you're setting up an object to be like, let's just say like a generic enemy or something like that, right?
Yes, right.
Can you load multiple different instances of a prefab with like different variables changed on them when they enter the scene?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we will do that when I hit the scripting part. Okay. I've had that same thing happen before, and so I do have code I'll show you. We're going to handle all of that through scripting. And with the scripting, yes, I can come back and make changes to individual ones. And I can make the change before it goes out there. Okay, other questions? Yeah. By the way, welcome back, Gwen. Okay. All right. Okay, the next thing up then that we're going to be talking about is the game manager. Okay, so at this point, we're going to go into scripting, and we're going to work with scripts from this point on. Okay, so let's see. Let me get rid of these that are already out there. Okay, I still have my ball prefab though. All right, so one of the things I need is a script that will make these things show up for me. Okay, so I'm going to come into Assets, right click, and I can create a C# script. Okay, and I'm going to change the name of it because it has a default name there. And I'm going to call it instantiate. That's the fancy word that means make one. Okay, we're going to instantiate prefabs. Okay, so that's its name. I hit enter and it does show me the default over here. Can't make changes here. I've got to actually open this thing up, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to double click it, and then I'll probably have to change. Oh, shoot. I should have been sharing on that. Just a second. Visual Studio is starting up, so I'm already committed to that. Okay, I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to move over to the C# screen. Okay, here we go with the default code. One thing I'm going to do, I don't need yet collections or collections generic, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those two. I do need Unity Engine. Okay, now keep in mind that we do get two methods by default whenever we start this. The start method is what occurs when the game begins. It goes through all of the code and says, if there's a start, I take care of that now at the start of the game. And then the update is every time there's a frame change, you get a new update on this. All right, so on this, not too hard. For one thing, do I want to do this every frame or just once at the beginning? Well, depends upon the game I'm playing, but pretty much what we're doing today, I want to do it once at the beginning. So I'm not going to need this, and I'm going to just go ahead and drop it and get rid of it. The less there is, the less there is to confuse you later. Okay. So now on this one, it turns out this is it's going to be one line of code. That's all it takes to do this. And I'm going to put that one line of code in here in a minute. Now, for those of you that have had Java, you're going to enjoy this because it's going to look very familiar to you. If you have not coded at all, this will be where you're going to need to put some time in, and you would have had a taste of that from last week. Okay, so to create this, I'm going to say instantiate, and notice as I start typing, it's giving me things that I can use. So I can double click that and go ahead and get that wording. Now, what am I going to instantiate? Well, I want to do the prefab. Okay, somehow I've got to be able to tell this code that I want to instantiate that prefab. Well, there's a couple of ways to do it, and because we need to use this later, I'm going to go ahead and show you this particular way. I'm going to come up at the top and say public game object and give it a name, and I'm just going to call it my prefab. Second, I'll get that little message. There we go. And that's all I'm going to do. Now, this command ties back into the Unity game engine, and we'll take a look at where it ties in a minute. But now at this point, I'm going to say instantiate, and what I wish to instantiate is whatever object I'm going to tie to my prefab. Okay, and I'm going to tell it where I want it, and that's its transition. Okay, anyway, I'm going to tell it where I want this thing, and to do that, I have to have a vector That's what it uses to be able to know where something is. And you can use a 3D vector or a 2D, but since we're in 2D, I'm just going to use a vector 2. And I tell it I want it at location 0, 0, which is going to be dead center. Okay. Now, this next one, just do it. Okay. We're not ready for an explanation on this one yet. I'm going to try to pronounce it. Okay. All right, so let's see what I might have screwed up here. Perhaps that's early. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so once I get my parentheses balanced, everything spelled correctly, that's going to say whatever I say my prefab happens to be, that's what I'm going to create, and I'm going to put it dead center, and that's just required. Okay, that's all it takes to instantiate. So I'm going to come back in now. Notice I've got yellow over here. Let me make a mistake because I want you to see what happens if you do have a mistake in the code. Notice it's showing up red again. There's something wrong there. All right. When I go up here and save it, it goes green over here that tells me everything I have typed in has been saved. But way over here on the right, there's a little red dot. And that red dot tells you this is not going to work. Okay, so whenever you see the red dot, you got to stop, come back, figure out what it is, and then come correct it. And it's that comma that I took out. Okay, now then I'll try and notice anything that you change, it puts a yellow flag by. Anything that hasn't been changed remains green. So I'm going to come up here and save again and come over and check. And this time there are no red marks. So that tells me it will at least run. Now, hopefully I told it to do the right thing and we will find out. Okay, so I'm going to come back into the game now. And let's see, we've got ball, prefab, circle, and instantiate. And the thing that I want you to see is up here, there was a variable I called my prefab. And right here, this little area ties directly back into the C# code. That public variable I made at the very top, that's where they'll show up. Okay, so what do I want the prefab to be? I want it to be the ball prefab. So I'm going to click and drag the ball prefab all the way over to here. And notice when you get to where it's supposed to be, then you can let go of it and it will change that to what you're wanting. Okay, let's see. Oh yes, please everybody record your attendance in chat. If you haven't yet already, please just go in there and put HERE. Okay, so this says, okay, there's my instantiate code. I have tied ball prefab to the code by using that little area right there, and that's what you look for. Okay, and now I'm going to run this and we'll see what happens. Okay, I've got to change screens again. Oh, okay. Let me stop this and show you what I just did then. New share. And that's a suggestion I have had from everybody is to please make sure you're sharing when you think you are. All right, is that going to almost? That's the one I want right there. Okay, share. Yeah, much better. Okay. So let me click on to something else. Okay, this is like I'm on circle and there's all the stuff you can do with the circle. I'm on ball prefab and it's blue because that's the last change I made to anything over there. And that shows that, okay. When I click on the code where I was telling you the ball prefab goes is right there. Okay, and notice when I click on it, it was highlighting over here. Yeah, see down here, it's showing me where it is. Okay, and something else for you to learn, if we haven't already, there's a place to fill in, and right beside it is a little bullseye. And if I'll click on the bullseye, that will list for me everything that can possibly go there. And so you can just click on the bullseye and just select the one that you're after, or you can just click and drag. And you have to fill that in or things will not work. All right, so now then let me go ahead and run this. We have our code correct. We've got the blanks filled in. And when we run this, make sure it's going to change. There we go. We get absolutely nothing. Okay, now there's a reason for this. Here is the code. Where is it in the scene? Okay, code has to be attached to something in the scene for it to run. If you don't attach the code, it doesn't run. Okay, so you can have all the beautiful code in the world, but if it's not attached to anything, okay, so now then we have a question. What is in the scene that I can attach it to? Nothing. I can't attach it to ball prefab because it doesn't start. You have to do that through code later, so it's not in the scene for me to attach it to. And this brings up the need for something called the game manager. Okay, a game manager is going to be something we put in the scene that's responsible for all the things that don't really belong elsewhere. Okay, like not this week, I'm not going to get into that this week, but next week we'll take a look at how to put a score on this thing. Okay, well, who does the score belong to? Well, nobody. It belongs to the game manager. Okay, so how do I get in a game manager? I'm going to right click, and one of the options is create empty. Okay, now what am I going to be creating? Let's take a look and see what we've got going now. These are game objects. What shows up over here are game objects. They're objects that are in the game in play. These, they're just assets that are potential things that I can use. Okay, so I need to create a game object, and I don't need it to do anything except show up. So I'm going to create an empty game object, and that's what it gives me. And I'm going to change its name to reflect what it's supposed to be doing, and it's going to be my game manager. Okay, its name has been changed. I have game manager selected, and there's nothing over here because it's empty. Okay, well, what I can do is take my code and add it to this game manager. Now my script is there. There's that little thing right there. And when you start, after you've built your code, this is what it's going to look like. It doesn't have anything tied to it. So if I turn around and run this, even though that code's going to run, there's nothing tied to this, and it says, what am I creating? Nothing. And that's what it'll create, nothing. So I've got to give it a name. This time I'll use the little bullseye, and that's, I guess I got on the wrong one. Let's try this. I just pull it straight in. There we go. Now it's ball prefab. And so now it knows what I want to create. So we've put something into the scene that's not visible. Okay. And but I can attach things to it because it's in the scene even though it's not visible. Okay, so I'm going to run this now, and let's see how it goes. And there we have a blue object on a blue screen, which is really a bad choice. Okay, so let me go back and change my prefab back to red, and that's FF0000. Okay, I've got that now. That should have gone red over here, but I don't see that it did. Well, let's see what happens as we run this thing. Let me go back into my code, and that's looking okay. We have our one line there. It's a ball prefab. Let me drag. See, now it's coming in red. What's going on with you, dude? Okay, let's see how it works when I run it. Okay, so it's actually going to be red. So what we're looking at here is a quirk in Unity, and you're going to find it has those. Okay, so that did not update when it should, but it did update after I used it. All right, so let's go back into our instantiate. And I'm going to take this and copy and paste. Okay, so that one's going to be at 0, 0, then 1, 1, then 2, 2, then -1, -1, and then -2, -2.
Are you writing the script
Oh,
at the moment?
Yeah, thank you very much. And y'all keep working on that one. All right, so let's share the code instead. Okay, there you go. All right, so I took this one, which was 0, 0, made a total of 5, and gave it 5 different locations. So 1, 1, 2, 2, -1, -2. Those of you that have already had some math may be able to see that in your mind. Notice this is yellow. If I turn around right now and run this, the changes do not take effect. The changes don't take effect until you save them. So I'm going to save them. So before I run, always check, is it all green over here? And are there any little red boxes over on this side? Nope, green everywhere. We're ready to go. So now then I need to change back to my Unity screen. Okay. And I'll run this again, and you notice that it has updated once I did the save. Run this again. And there's 5 of them. Okay. Now, that's how I put them out there. The question earlier was, can you change any of their values? Yeah, you sure can. And so I'm going to do that. All right, so I'm going to come back into my code, which means I need to share that screen. Nope, that's not the code. That's the code. Okay, now I'm going to do one thing here. Right here, before I do the 5th ball, which will be in the lower left-hand corner, I'm going to come back in and make a change to the prefab itself. Well, to do this, I need another variable. And so I'm going to come up here and I'll put it underneath this one. Get some room right there. And I'm going to put in public. Remember when we were, I think we did a bouncing ball and we had to put rigid bodies on stuff so that they actually have some physical characteristics. So I'm going to do a public rigid body. And going to be a 2D. Okay. And I just call that RB for rigid body. That'll be my variable name. Okay. So now, before I instantiate this last one, I'm going to go change a thing or two here. So I'm going to say rigid body, you are going to become equal to whatever's in my prefab. And I'm going to get a component from it. And the component I'm going to get is a rigid body 2D. Okay. Let's see, did I leave out something? Yes. This is a method call. So for those of you that have coded before, it does require a set of parentheses right there. Okay, RB now lets me talk to the rigid body component of my prefab. Okay, well, what do I want to do with it? Well, let's change its gravity scale, rigid body dot. Now, at this point, it lists me everything that's out there. These are the actual fields that you can get to. These others are other methods that you can call, but I want to go to the gravity scale on that sucker and play with that. So I'm going to say gravity scale, and I want that to go equal to 1. Okay, so what's that going to do? Well, let's save this first. Check for little red dots, green everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to change my share back into Unity. Okay, and if you notice, this has now picked up the changes over here. Again, you can see the code. It's hard to see, but anyway, you can see it. You can't make any changes to it from here. So what happens now when I do this? Let's give it a try and see. Well, for one thing, it's telling me, uh-oh, so that's going to have 0 effect. Okay, whenever there's a none, that says, okay, get component rigid body 2D, and what are you going to get back? Nothing. Well, you can't change the gravity scale of nothing. Okay, let's run it though and see what happens. Notice there's one missing. Okay, that's because code quit working on us right here. If you don't fill that in some instances, it just goes ahead and does nothing. In other instances, it comes back and says, no, you can't do that. Okay, so there's 2 places you can pick up errors in your code. One is when you're first keying it in and you get syntax errors. The other is when it's running and you get logic errors. So what do we do with that? Well, let's go look at ball prefab. Well, that's a problem. My prefab doesn't have a rigid body. Okay, so I'm going to come in it and add a component, and I'm going to give it a rigid body 2D. And if you ever follow along with me or something, you get different words here. We'll check up here. I did a search on RIG, and that's what it gave me. Okay, and all right, so far so good. What happens though? Let me just, well, I'll get 4 balls out there. Let's see what happens to them. See if they've got time enough to react. There we go. What happens when you add a rigid body and gravity? Gravity takes over. Okay, so one of the things I can do then is start this off at 0. Okay, now it has a rigid body. It can figure everything out. Okay, and when I made that a 0, which means there's no gravity, so it'll just sit there. All right, let's run that again. Notice only the 5th one that we created fell off. Okay, now then, I'm going to stop this. Notice what happened to gravity scale. And if I run this again, okay, why did that happen? Because that's what I told it to do in code. And our code that we're running is tied to the objects that they're associated with. And so I said, oh, change that to 1. It went, okay. And it changed it to 1. It's still 1. Okay. So let me go look at my code again. And I'll need to change screens. Hey, I'm starting to remember. Okay. Code. There we go. And share that screen. Okay. This is what happened to it. I created 4 of them with gravity of 0, changed gravity to 1, created a 5th one, and it fell off the screen because it was responding to gravity. But it left my prefab in that condition. So if I don't want it to stay there, I only want it for that one, well, then I need to come in here and set it back to 0 before I quit. Okay, so I'm copying that. That was Control-C, and I'm going to put the copy here, and I'm going to change my gravity scale back to 0 after it's over with. Yellow, so I've got to go save it. green, green on both sides, so we're good there. And need to change my share over to Unity again. All right, we're going to run this one more time. They all fell again. Let's see what happens now if I run it again. Why did they all 5 fall and then only 1 fell? By the way, that 5th one's still falling. It will continue to fall until I stop it. Well, why? Well, we just showed you a minute ago that I had this set to, it was still sitting at 1, and we went and talked about how it got changed to 1. And I added code that would change it to 0, but that code hadn't been run yet. So when I ran it, this 1 was still there. It created 4 balls with 1. Then it's reset it to 1 again, created a 5th ball, and then reset it to 0. Now when I turn around and run it again, it's 0 and will remain that way until I change it in code. Y'all doing okay here? All right, these are the kind of things you will have to be able to do to get the Space Invaders game to work. All right, the assignment this week is that you're going to create bullets. You're going to instantiate bullets every time the space bar is pressed. And you need to be able to get the bullets to go straight. Well, there's going to be a problem. And the problem is gravity. Okay, but you don't have to have the rigid body 2D in here to get those suckers to move. Didn't we move left and right with the arrow keys? And every time we move left and right, we added a little bit to its location. Okay, that's the idea that's going to happen in the game. When you instantiate a bullet, you want to use that same method that we use to go left and right, except you don't wait for any key to be pressed. You put this in your, what was the method that runs every frame? On update, something like that. Anyway, you go into that method that runs every frame, and every frame you add a little bit more. If it's the good guys shooting up, let me stop sharing so I can do hand gestures here. Okay, if it's the good guys shooting up, well, X is across, Y is up and down, so you'll add a little bit to the Y every time in update to get the bullet to go up. For the bad guys dropping bombs down, you could use this exact method I just showed you, or you can go in code and do it in code that you change the position of the bomb as it's coming down by subtracting it a little bit each time from the Y-axis. Okay, now I didn't do this by altering the game itself because I want you to have to try to apply what we've talked about to your game to make sure you're understanding it. Okay, so this time, the last couple of sessions, I just showed you how to do what you were supposed to do. This session, I'm showing you how to do prefabs, reminding you that we've moved stuff around on the screen via code already, and you put all of that together, and you should be able to instantiate a bullet and make it shoot up. All right, that was the game manager, and that all of this belongs in the game manager. Okay, so I simply added the code to the game manager and it's working. Okay, there is a topic now. How are we doing on time? Fine. We've still got about 20 minutes left. There is a topic that's introduced this week, and it is called a singleton. Now this, we're already hitting patterns in this thing because Unity does so much for us, okay? This singleton pattern is used in all languages, okay? So this is a generic pattern that as you learn the pattern, when you go into a game, let's say that we've got a game where there's a deck of cards involved, only one deck of cards. How do we make sure that no coder comes along to change the game or improve the game later and accidentally creates a second deck of cards? And now we have 104 cards instead of 52, and things just don't go right. Okay, you can't let a second deck be created. You have to make sure there's one and only one deck in the game. How do you do that? By using the Singleton pattern. And that's what we're going to take a look at next. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see, where am I going to put this? I'll put it in assets. So let me share screen. If I can find my cursor, lost it. There it goes. Okay, going to share a screen. Go back to personal and click share. Okay, and I'm going to add in my assets another C#, and I'm going to create a C# script, and I'm going to change its name also to Game Manager. And watch the icon change on this thing. See what it did? Game managers are so common in games. They have an icon say, oh, here's your manager. Okay, so that's what's happening with this. So Game Manager. Now, essentially what's going to happen is that this code I called instantiate prefabs, that code would just be included in Game Manager. Okay, if I have time, I'll show that to you, but I want to make sure you see the Singleton pattern first. Okay, so I'm going to double click this, open it up, share my screen. And you'll see this occasionally. I just reload and the world is fine. Everything continues on. Now then, up at the top, I have two tabs. One is my instantiate prefabs, and the other is my second of the C# files. This is going to be my game manager. Again, I don't need these little guys up here on top. Okay, so I'll leave that. We'll see in just a second. All right, so here is the problem. Same thing like that deck of cards. The game manager is going to be the one that's putting out the prefabs to start with, getting the game all set up, that kind of stuff. If you accidentally create two game managers, you've got more problems than you know what to do with. So we've got to keep just one game manager. Never let there be two. Okay, so this is how we do it, by using the Singleton pattern. The first thing I'm going to do is come up here at the top. Well, let me get my little curly braces like I prefer them. I don't know why this method, this style started where they, oh, well, never mind. Okay, so up here at the beginning, this is where I'll put my globals. I'm going to say public.
I don't think you're sharing the.
Not sharing the right screen? No, I'm not. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Man, I'm working on that, y'all. I really am. I'm just not being.
Have you tried just sharing the desktop?
Yeah, can I do that?
I believe you can. There should be a way that you can just share the screen from a monitor.
Okay. That you want to share. It says window. That's basic. Let me try advanced. Music or computer sound only. Content from second camera. Oh Lord, no. I can do a whiteboard. And I don't have anything that's saying my desktop. I'll look that up in the meantime, because that would save me a lot of problems too. Okay, anyway, going into the code, I think that's where I want to be. Okay, so I have double clicked and here's my Unity engine, and all I did was make some blank space up here so I can put in, let's see, public static game manager, and oops, need a capital on that. Just trying game manager, and that's got to give it a name. All right, instantiation means we created one. Okay, that's what it means. So I'm going to call this variable an instance, because I should only have one instance. It should only be instantiated once. And to start off with, it will have not been instantiated, and that's going to be a null condition. What about this instance? Hadn't been created yet, so it's null. Okay, now then, here's a new method that is built in. It just doesn't show it to you usually. And it's going to be private. It returns nothing, and it's called awake. Okay, so now let's look at a difference on this. Start is when the game starts. For the game to start, it has to go through and instantiate everything that's needed. Okay, so that's when the game starts. This one says the moment you are instantiated. Okay, whenever that occurs, whenever you wake up and realize you have been there, this is what we do. We're going to check to see, okay, I'm only supposed to have one instance. So if I don't have any instances yet, I'm going to make one. But if I already have an instance, I've just been instantiated twice, I'm going to immediately destroy myself and not allow there to be more than one. That's the code that we're going to put in here. So if instance happens to be, and again, eek for those of you in the code. Okay, so right now I have just come awake. I have a variable that was set to null to start with, and since it is static, that means this one variable is shared by all instances. That's what static means. Okay, so if I create 5 game managers, all 5 will be sharing this one instance variable. Okay, so if I come awake, if it's still null, well, that means I'm the first one. Okay, so in that case, I'm going to change instance from being null to being the memory location of this particular instance. Okay, so at this point then, if it's null, I'm the first one, nobody else has been created, and I'm going to go and set instance to me. Instance is no longer null. So if somebody else comes along and says, okay, I want another game manager, is instance equal to null? No, it's not. Okay, well, what happens in that case? Well, else, if instance is not equal to me, if I'm the second one, okay, instance wasn't null, well, is instance, which was the first one's address, equal to my address? And if it's not, that means I'm the second. Okay, so if that happens to be true, then I'm just going to say, nope, destroy. And that's how you destroy a game object. And game object is a known value. So if I just refer to game objects, it's talking about my address. So destroy the object at this address, which is me. And that way, only one is ever created. That's a singleton pattern. It is used in every language that you can work with. Okay, here's the idea. Set up a static variable, which means every instance shares it. If, when this one wakes up, if that is still null, that means I'm the first one. Yay, I'm good, I'm solid, I'll change instance to be me. Now, if somebody creates a second one, it's still sharing the same instance, which is now pointing at the first one. And it comes in and says, okay, if you're not null and you're not the first one, go away. And that way, no one is ever able to create more than one instance. Okay, use the same way for, like I said, you got a deck of cards, put something like that in it to make sure that's in the constructor. For those of you that are in Java, you would put that in the constructor and it says, if I'm the second one, no, just go away. Okay, that's a singleton pattern. Questions? Okay, I don't see any errors on this. I'm going to change my view back to Unity. All right, and I do have a game manager, but it's not attached to anything, which means it will not be run until I attach it. Okay, normally then I would take this one or these instantiate commands and place them inside the game manager, put the game manager with game manager and get rid of this one. Okay, so we looked at prefabs, why you need them and how you make them and how you use them. We looked at a game manager. The game manager takes care of those things that really shouldn't be taken care of by anybody else. And we looked at a singleton pattern to make sure you only ever have one game manager in a game. Questions? From anybody, questions? Okay. All right, if not, then I'm going to stop the recording. Maybe.